in the morning. Super Bowl team and now these haters salty.
All right. Welcome to IE Sports Radio. I'm Niners Jess, along with Ty Alston, Maddie B, who will be back with us next week, and your girl Bex. We are the East Coast Red and Gold. What's going on, Faithful?
What's going on, everybody?
Hump day has arrived.
Yes. And we got a good show tonight. Make sure you like and subscribe to us, the East Coast Red and Gold, on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right. And did you know Planet Jerky beef brisket? You know about that? Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. Man, that's a mouthful.
What?
This all brisket jerky. That's right, brisket, baby. Has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, low in sugar, and high in protein. Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And of course, we are part of the IE Sports Radio Network. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure you follow us at IE Sports Radio, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and every other place to keep up with the latest in sports with our shows. Also, check out the website, iesportsradio.com, for sports news, the IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each podcast on the network, and our IE Sports Radio community forum. Stop by the store and check out the latest merch. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right. Thank you very much. And without further ado, let's get to our special guests. Please welcome from the Krueg Show. We got Larry Krueger, and from the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. We got Jack Hammer, who's also from inside the 49ers. What's going on, guys?
Hey,
welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Hey. And the crowd goes wild.
Yay! Yes!
Take that candlestick dirt,
Take
Becca.
the candlestick dirt.
That's right.
There you go.
All right, so we're 6 days of training camp. Who are the players who stood out to you so far, and why?
I'll let Larry go first.
Ooh, I get to go first? This is exciting. Well, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, if you don't start with Brandon Ayuk, you're not starting in the right spot. Ayuk is just absolutely on a different level. We all know what a good player he is and has been. Forget all that. He's better now. He's attacking the football with reckless abandon. Earlier this year, he put out on Twitter the rocket ship lifting off, and you know, now I know exactly what he's getting at. I mean, I don't know if he's after the bag or if he's after the bowl or if he's in a competition with Deebo or if he just wants to, become the number one receiver in the NFL. But he has taken it to a totally different level. He's attacking the football. If you throw him the ball, he catches it. If you don't throw it in his area, he'll go get it. I mean, he's just been absolutely spectacular, and I think I think him and Deebo would be the guys that I would talk about first and foremost. Deebo's in incredible shape. Ayuk's in incredible shape. They both look like they're primed for career years, and really the trio, I guess, if you want to say McCaffrey, who's been maybe the best player in the OTAs, and then those two receivers. All three of these guys look like they're absolutely primed for career years. And the Niners, assault on the Super Bowl this year will be led by those three guys, especially on offense.
Yeah, and since Larry took all offensive guys, I'll go to the other side of the ball. Javon Hargrave has really stood out. Big acquisition this offseason, and he's been extremely tough to block. If it was a games, he would have blown up the quarterback a couple of times already. So, he's looking in really good shape. The linebacker group, the 49ers, it's hard to point out just one because that entire side of the position is so good. There's at least 6 guys that can make this roster. at least 6. And then you get into the secondary, and Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir, both looking really healthy. Talon Hufanga made a play on, I don't remember which day it was, but he made a play from the middle of the field that was reminiscent of Ronnie Lott's knockaway in the NFC Championship game back in '89 against the Rams, where he just comes out of the middle of the field where you don't see him coming, all of a sudden he knocks the ball. It was that kind of a play. Yep. Really good stuff from that whole group. And then in terms of a guy that's not, wouldn't expect to see him start, but a guy that is looking completely different than I've ever seen him during training camp, and this is my 3rd training camp, in attendance, is Javon Kinlaw. He looks like he is a completely different player right now than he's been over the last couple of years. He looks healthy. He's doing, and part of the reason why I say he looks like a completely different guy is because other than looking, not just the way that he looks, but he's going through all the drills. There was, last year in particular, he was hardly even getting reps until they got to the team stuff. And so going through one-on-ones, doing all that work, he looks really good right now, and he's really making his presence felt on that second line.
So I hear that Deebo looks a little leaner.
Well, yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. In fact, I asked him about his conditioning. He said he's been doing boxing, and he said he's cut weight. He said those 3-minute rounds, you don't realize how long 3 minutes really is until you start training in these 3-minute segments. And he said it's helped him cut his body weight. He's really, really determined. And this is a guy who's already made his money. So in a way, it just, he mentioned to us earlier, guys, that he watched film with Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan, if you allow him to be critical, can be incredibly critical. And I think kind of went through with a fine-tooth comb and showed Deebo, hey, you want to be the best? You want to be as great as you can be? Then you got to do this and this and this and that and this and that. You know what I mean? He just went through it with a fine-tooth comb. And I think it broke Deebo down to the point where Deebo went into the interview room and told us that he stunk last year. And when you can get a great player, and let's be honest, Deebo's a great player, to admit that, there's a lot more growth there, you got something really special. And so the 49ers have, I think, 2 true number 1 wide receivers. And I think you're going to see it this year.
Yeah, I agree with Larry. I think they do. They have, it's 1A, 1B, however you want to put them. It doesn't matter. And with Deebo last year at this point, he was really sluggish, right? He just barely, I think, was touching the field. And that when he first started camp last year, you could tell that he wasn't the same guy as he was the year before. And he looks much more explosive to me. And, he's still thick. He's still got those big legs and, all that stuff. It's from that standpoint, it's still Deebo, but he just looks like he's in better shape. And the 49ers are right now, the way that the offense, I was mentioning this to Larry yesterday, the way that these guys, their top players look like they are ready to go play a game tomorrow if they had to.
Oh, wow.
That is exciting. You see it across the board. It seems like everyone is hungry. Everyone is like just honed in and focused on, I'm coming into camp in the best possible shape. I'm ready to play. I'm hungry to learn. I'm here to absorb your point about Deebo, sitting down and breaking down film with Kyle and accepting that criticism where, he may have walked away with a bit of arrogance, prior to the contract year, and coming in with a whole new attitude and being ready to really just, I'm here to learn and be better and work at that. It's amazing. I can't be more excited for the team.
And John Lynch, I'm sorry, Jess. John Lynch mentioned, Larry had talked about the honesty that conversation with Kyle Shanahan. That's something that John Lynch has talked about a couple of times, and the players have been mentioned too. That's one of the things that really sticks out, is his ability to hold guys accountable comes from the fact that he's not afraid to tell them right up to their face. It's not like he's, talking behind their backs and they're not hearing the truth. He's not afraid to just tell them like it is. And the guys really respect that, I think.
And would you say that Kyle is harder on the 49ers wide receivers than any other position group?
He played wide receiver, so he has a depth of knowledge about the position. I think he's critical. I think Kyle has different modes. I think they're after it this year. I mean, Jack and I, have been covering this thing for a number of years now. You guys have been following this team for a number of years as well. If you are around this team, there is a burn. I mean, they've always been a Super Bowl contender, right? So it's not like, hey, how's this year different? But this year's different. This year is absolutely different. I don't know if it comes from Jed. I don't know if it comes from the way last year ended. I don't know if it comes from the fact that they're getting, longer into their regime and they still haven't accomplished their goal. But I think John Lynch doesn't want to be a football general manager forever. I think but he doesn't want to leave without accomplishing his goal. I think John, Jed, and Kyle are made men in their world if they can get this thing done, and they know it, and they're after it, and they understand what kind of talent they've accrued on this roster, and they're all about it this year. I mean, I sense, and I've talked to some people, work for the organization, and they said, Krueg, you're absolutely right. It's what you're sensing is there is this hunger and single-minded, single focus, intensity about this year's pursuit of the Lombardi Trophy that I've never seen since I've covered the team. So they're all about it this year. I'm not saying they weren't in the past, but they understand that they've got unfinished business, and they really are very passionate about getting it done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it reminds me a lot of 1994, right? Back-to-back NFC Championship game losses to the Cowboys, and it's time to go get it now. And that really seems there's definitely, like Kelly says over there, it's definitely a sense of urgency to get it done now. We've all heard the team's getting a little bit longer, in terms of being able to keep everybody together. And so it really feels like this is the year that they need to put it together. Heck, they even went out and got a 3rd round kicker just like they did in '94 too.
Yep, it's a lot of deja vu with '94.
Show already.
Jack with the knowledge. Usually that's Maddie. Inside
dates and times, but yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely fired up for the season. I was just telling Ty that it was a long 40 days to get to training camp, and now it seems training camp is here, and it's a long time to get to the season.
Yeah, and camp just started.
Yeah, only 6 practices in. Talk a little bit about Marcelino McCrary ball.
Go ahead, Larry, because this is your guy.
I love this guy. And I've loved him for a while now. I mean, I thought he was, first of all, I didn't realize that the last year the 49ers paid Marcelino the most money of any of their undrafted players. That's usually a pretty good indication of how a team feels about a college free agent. And he started off as a nickel backer at Indiana, and he's a guy who he's the modern day linebacker, right? And they're smaller and faster. He was 6 feet, about 214. Now I'd say he's about 225. He's jacked up. He's just a great their. I mean, he had 2 brothers who played in the NFL. And I talked to him last year. I said, why did you come here? There's so many good players here. You can't play here. And Callie Young says, I've got a man crush. Yeah. I've tried to get him on my stream. We were going to do something right before camp. Hopefully we're going to do something here in the next week or two, but I'm all in on this player. This guy he's versatile. He's a blitzer. I think that's one thing that the reason he's going to really take off is Wilkes loves to blitz his backers. And this guy's a tremendous blitzer. He's got an elite motor. He's super aggressive. We've seen him, just snuff out plays in the flat. He's got positional versatility. He can play all 3 of the linebacker spots. He played in a 4-2-5 in Indiana, and he played this husky position, which was kind of a combination of linebacker, rover back. And, but I asked him, why'd you come here? And he said, Aziz is a dog, and Dre's a dog, and Warner's a dog. And, I'm a dog too, and I'm as good as them. And I'm going to show it. And it made my eyes open. But you know what? The guy he plays fast, he plays physical, he flies to the ball, he takes good angles. He was a 2-time team captain at Indiana. Really a special player. And I think he's absolute. I don't think this guy's going to be, good. I think this guy's going to be a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, he had a collision on the first day of pads with Jordan Mason on a run up the middle. It was one of those, you always kind of hear, watch those highlight films and you hear the collisions on those. A lot of times we don't really get to hear it at camp because the music is so loud. But we're on the other field and you could kind of hear it. And the pads were popping on Tuesday or Monday. And there was one run up the middle with Jordan Mason. The two of them came together about 5 yards downfield. And it was one of the loudest collisions I've heard on a football field ever. And it was pretty cool. But and like Larry said, this guy's all over the place. He's a really good player. We saw it last year in glimpses, right? Especially in that first preseason game with the interception. And right now, there's an opening for him. And he's got to beat out a couple of guys that were drafted. But right now, I would say he looks like he's in position to do that.
That's awesome. I actually think he's a really nice guy, too. I met him a couple times. He's a super nice guy.
You got a man crush on him too. You and Larry both have man crushes on the guy.
Yeah, he's a great combination of strength and speed, by the way, as well. You're talking about 4.5 speed, and at the combine he had 23 reps. That was the 98th percentile on the bench for backers. Wow. So I mean, you got strength, you got speed, he's got time in this defense, and he's ready to make it happen. I can't wait for the preseason.
And you can't go wrong with
I got a follow-up question.
Yeah, well, sorry, you can't go wrong with a guy who's willing to bet on himself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. See, with that nickel corner position, kind of like a back/linebacker position, because you do a little bit of both. With that said, can you see McCrary Ball getting a lot more reps as opposed to being subbed off the field? So versatile.
Well, it's hard to exactly see how the whole thing is going to come together because the Niners, are going to play some nickel. I mean, look at the way the NFL's trending, right? It's 70%. Now it's like 75%. Yeah. It's getting closer to 80% of sub package versus base. So you really don't go with 3 linebackers on the field very much, which is the exact reason Azeez Al-Shaair had to move on in free agency. Yeah. So it's a 5-man surface on the line of scrimmage. It's 2 backers on the second level. And we know who those 2 backers are going to be, right? It's going to be Fred, right, and it's going to be Dre. So, but Marcelino is going to play a lot in the base. He can wear the green dot and play the mic. He can play the Sam. He can play the weak side backer. He's your typical hybrid defender. And that's the one thing we don't know, guys, about Steve Wilks is we don't know. We know there's a lot of teams that will go to the sub package. We don't know how he's going to utilize these kind of in-between size defenders. Will they put Marcelino on the field and play him at safety? He's played safety. Will they go with 3 backers? Will they, so there's a lot of unknowns here. How they're going to utilize their talent in the sub package. But he's a hybrid defender that can be used in a lot of ways. So he gives them great versatility.
Yeah, and also tied to your question, it's that hybrid. That's kind of like what Fred Warner kind of played that position at BYU. It's kind of a hybrid safety linebacker. Jalen Graham, who they drafted in the 7th round from Purdue, he kind of was in that same kind of mold. The 49ers really like those type of players. Now, I wouldn't expect to see them play their base defense very often when a team is showing the type in the situations where they would normally want to utilize a nickel, So I don't know if we necessarily say we're going to see a third linebacker on the field all that often. I think kind of like to your question, more of what you'd see in that situation. That's where I would expect to see more of Jair Brown, that type of player. Maybe if he shows that he can fill it, I think that's more of a Jair Brown type of role that you're getting at there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Good call.
Okay. Any surprises, disappointments?
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's levels of surprises, right? So, like Deshaun Jameson has been fantastic, right? He is a rookie corner out of Texas who's also a return man, and he's been such a pleasant surprise. But like, I've been so on him since the draft that at this point, I guaranteed before camp started he was going to make the team. So he would be a surprise, I think, to most Niner fans. To me, I'll go with somebody even more current. I talked today to Chris Koceric and about Spencer Wagee, the undrafted free agent defensive lineman from North Dakota State. Chris talked for 6-7 minutes about Wagee exclusively and how he's really shined in the last couple days, how he's been outstanding in the one-on-ones, how he can play end, he can play tackle. This ain't about his weight, and he's a 6'5", 290-pound guy with a great motor. And if you can imagine this, he's got the identical 1.66 10-yard split that Aldon Smith had coming out of Missouri. So, and at 290 pounds. And Wagee's got a great motor. So to me, that right there, that's all I need to know. And then I did an interview with him. He's grew up on a dairy farm in South Dakota. He's dealing with pigs and milking cows, and he's got that country boy strength. And
country strong.
He's country strong. And yeah, I mean, seriously, and he's just a real down-to-earth, likable young guy. I'm all in on Wagee. So I would say those two guys, Jameson and Wagee, have been the pleasant surprises. As far as disappointments for me, I would say it's probably the defensive end who they signed, to replace Menahue, Cleveland Farrell. I mean, I don't see any pass rush, and the guy's got 10 sacks in 4 seasons, and yet he still almost knocked Brock Purdy out for the year by bumping into his elbow the other day at practice. I mean, my goodness. I mean, I'd banish this guy from the facility just for that move alone. Farrell to me is unimpressive. Not because of that, but I mean, just because he doesn't really, he's an edge rusher who doesn't really burn the edge. And I see him as kind of a, he's more of a run defender, but he plays a pass rushing position, and he doesn't have the explosive traits that I like to see in edge rushers.
There he's got the first two on the defensive side for me. The Deshaun Jameson, he just popped out to me during minicamp. That's where he really caught my eye. I didn't know of him before the draft, but when I saw him at minicamp and always around the ball, that's when he caught my eye. Spencer Wagee, we talked about guys that can play different spots, right? Spencer Wagee is a guy who I believe, Larry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was a defensive end at North Dakota State. So that's where that speed comes from. Slide him inside, and he's doing really well in there. Over on the offensive side of the ball, I would say, I don't know if I would say I'm surprised necessarily, but the guy that's been standing out over there as far as the younger guys would be Braden Willis, the tight end out of Oklahoma. He looks really good. He moves well, and you can see him really starting to improve. The kind of weakness in his game was blocking, but it seems like he's fitting in good there. In terms of maybe a disappointment for me, I would say Cam Latu, the other tight end that was taken in the 3rd round out of Alabama. Latu's and it's interesting because the reason for my disappointment is he just hasn't been able to catch the ball. He's had a couple of really nice reps and one-on-ones against Jair Brown where he's beaten him in coverage badly. But the first time, just the ball hit him right in the hands. He dropped it. The next time the ball didn't, was overthrown, so he couldn't make a play on the ball. And then in team drills yesterday, he has it should have been a touchdown from Sam Darnold, and I didn't see it clearly. Larry I asked Larry what it looked like on it, and he said he just reached out with a single hand. And you got to make those plays, man.
Yeah. Do you guys see?
Latu's got a world of talent. I talked to his position coach today, and he's a 3rd round pick. So, but if he's going to have to turn it up, he needs reps. He's played very little tight end. He can do everything, but this is the NFL, and it's about right now. And Dwelly and Werner are contributors on special teams. Willis, I think, has clearly outplayed him as a receiver. Willis has tremendous heart as a blocker. And if Latu doesn't get it rolling, even though he's a third-round pick, he's going to have a hard time making the team.
Yep.
Do you guys see Jalen Graham making the roster?
I do. And this is another area, I did a video on my channel today about, some of the players that are really good football players that I don't think are going to make the team. And one of the guys I have not making this football team is Oren Burks. And the reason I don't have him making this football team is I think they're going to keep 6 backers, and Warner and Greenlaw and Marcelino are 3 of them. D. Winters and Jalen Graham are both playing really, really well. That's 5 right there. And then it's going to come down to which special team linebacker do you like the most between Oren Burks, Curtis Robinson, and Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. Robinson had a forced fumble the other day. He's cheaper. Burks is the most expensive. He's the best of them, but I also could see them trading him to a team like the Raiders, who desperately needs linebackers and might give you a 6th-round pick for Oren Burks. So Burks is good, and there's nothing wrong with Burks. He's a really good special teamer. He can play from scrimmage, but in an era where the sub package is, you're using 2 linebackers, and you've got all these great young talents like Marcelino and Winters and Graham. And Winters has just turned it on the last couple of days. Graham as well. Graham's physical, and he can cover. He can hit. I think Burks is going to get squeezed, and I love what I see out of Graham and Winters and McCrary ball.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with Larry on this one in terms of Graham making it. I think he's a guy that's right on the edge, and I do agree with him that I think there's a linebacker or 2 that's going to get traded. I think that's where he might be able to fit in. I think Oren Burks makes his team because I think that they like him that much on the special team side that he's going to make it. But I think if there's a trade there, it's going to be probably more of the Demetrius Flanagan Fowles gets traded. So there's a way that he can get on there. It's just a matter. They just have, again, that's a loaded position, Curtis Robinson and so on. Keeping 6 linebackers is a lot. And I think of that group, I think Graham's, because he was a 7th-round pick, there's maybe a possibility they think they can slide him through to the practice squad. I think he's right on the edge. I'm not going to argue with Larry on this one because I think he's not. I don't think he's completely wrong. I just don't think that's the direction that they're going to go.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with Larry like I argue with Ty on Twitter. Come on.
I was waiting for somebody to bring that up.
That was Mingo to promote the show. People stirred up and they're like, man, I got to watch.
Kali said, what's up with Ambry Thomas? I think he needs to show something in preseason.
Callie is right.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with Ambry Thomas either. I mean, Ambry Thomas, he's got a world of athleticism. He plays a position that's very, valued around the league. This is another guy who, might be in that mode that he might be too good to cut, but not good enough to make it. So I think, the 49ers are in a mode right now that I really think that they have 3 to 5 players, maybe more, that might not make their roster, but may net them a day 3 draft choice. And I think Ambry Thomas is one of them. Ambry Thomas, I mean, you look around the league, I've studied everybody's depth chart. There's hardly anybody that has the corner depth the Niners have. And Ambry's a 3rd-round pick. He runs well. He's been relatively healthy. There's probably some teams that had a good grade on him at Michigan that would be interested. I'm not saying you're going to get anything substantial, but, I mean, this is a team that drafted Brock Purdy with the last pick in the draft. I think they value any and all day 3 picks, and I think they'll get one for Ambry Thomas at the cutdown if he winds up losing the battle. And I think unless there's some injuries, we see about Darrell Luter Jr., Luter's got, really long arms, great man-to-man cover ability. If he's healthy, I think it's going to be really difficult without injuries for Ambry to make this roster.
Yeah, it's the Ambry Thomas one's interesting because he's been in position to make plays, and he's just not. You keep watching these highlights, and you keep seeing him right there on guys. I mean, it is Brandon Ayuk that keeps toasting him, and so there's got to be a little bit to be said for that. But you got to make those plays. You're right there, and you're just not making the play on the ball. And I think that's the tough part for him. And then it's a matter of, does a guy like Deshaun Jameson stand out enough when we get to the preseason games or when we get to Las Vegas next week to warrant a position and take that spot away from him? I think that's where the question comes. And can he play inside too? Because you're not going to move Ambry Thomas inside. So if you can get a guy like Deshaun Jameson, if you can start to give him reps in the nickel, like John Lynch said they're going to try to do, and he starts to make plays in there as well, that makes you more valuable.
I'm actually excited to see Isaiah Oliver.
Yeah, you should be. Yeah. Isaiah Oliver's a heck of a defensive back. I think he's an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Ward in the slot. He's a better cover guy inside than Jimmy Ward. There's no question about that. And I don't think he's that much of a lightweight when it comes to stopping the run either. He's a really good nickel guy that Steve Wilkes, I think, really liked, and I like what I've seen out of him. He's been really sticky in coverage, and I think the 49ers got a really good one right there.
Yeah, Oliver's. It's interesting. He came out of Colorado. I think he was a second-round pick. He was a really good player in the Pac-12. He just struggled on the boundary, lost a little confidence. A lot of people feel like the inside corner, the slot, is more difficult. We asked him the other day on the podium, do you feel more comfortable inside or outside? Sometimes guys will be like, hey man, I feel comfortable wherever they play me. He's like, I feel more comfortable inside. And that's interesting because it's a two-way break. It's a real challenging position. There's a lot of guys who feel much, much more comfortable knowing they got the sideline, on one side of them. And yet Oliver feels more comfortable inside. So I think he's going to he's going to change the dynamic of the 49er defense. I think he's going to give them a better coverage man than they've had there probably in years. And yet I think, when you look at some of the guys who have played there, in the last few years, Jimmy Ward, K'Wan Williams, I'm not sure that he's the run defender that those guys are. So they may lose a little something against the run, but I think they'll gain something against the pass. And as time goes on, it's more of a passing league. So I do like the fit. And also, I think it's really nice to have a veteran player in what almost guarantees to be a relatively young secondary.
How about those running backs? Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, TDP.
Keep going.
You can leave CMC out of it. Just
the Bourne, Ronald Awatt.
Exactly.
This is going to be a fear. I mean, this is why this roster is so incredible. I mean, the competition is going to be fierce. McCaffrey's a all-pro type player. Mitchell looks lean and mean, and we know the way Kyle likes to use him. He never fumbles. He runs well between the tackles. Kyle believes a lot in him, and he's a finisher. Then you got Jordan Mason, who showed up at 230 today. Anthony Lynn told me that Ty Davis Price last year got down to like 217, that now he's more closer to 230, and they like him at that weight. I was surprised when he said that because to me he looks faster than ever. But Ty Davis, I'll say this. I think McCaffrey, Mitchell, Mason, and TDP are all starting caliber backs. And don't sleep on the other guys either. Laborn was at Marshall last year. He's very thick lower body. And I said, hey, Anthony, I love what I'm seeing out of Laborn and Awatt. And he said, hey, if you like them now, you're going to love them in a month, because when these guys hit the preseason, they're going to be productive. Awatt's got great hands. He can really catch it. Laborn's got great contact balance and a real thick lower body and can break tackles. So, and then the Niners are also too deep at fullback. I think I was standing next to Jack the last practice when Lance found Coletta, the fullback, in the flat in the red zone drill for a nice pass play. Coletta is a mechanical engineering major who's really smart. And if it comes down to this last spot on the roster, they may go special team versatility, and Coletta's got an advantage in that category. So, they're loaded. I mean, they got a Pro Bowl running back, they got a Pro Bowl fullback. I mean, it's one of the deepest offensive, running back groups in the league.
Yeah, and the Ty Davis Price piece, the TDP. I mean, he's the guy that's really stood out when you talk about that running back all of a sudden elevating himself from where he was before. We knew Jordan Mason was good. We knew Elijah Mitchell was good. We knew what Christian McCaffrey could do. Ty Davis Price was a little bit of a downer last year, but he's been totally different this year. And Kyle Shanahan was asked a question during the last press conference about him, about how tough the offense is on rookie guys, knowing what's going, and their heads are kind of swimming sometimes. And I think the biggest difference with him is he understands where he's going. You see the quickness in his cuts, and even if he's a little bit heavier, like Larry said at 230, it doesn't look like it because he's cutting. He's not running into his linemen like he did all the time last year. He's getting to the hole and he's exploding up through it and running over people at the second level. He looks much better, and he had a really nice catch on the first day of practice. I think it was from what's his name? Number 5 from Trey Lance.
That
right?
guy.
Never heard of
One
him.
of the first plays of practice. It was play action, and he hit him, and it was just perfect throw, perfect catch, really nice play out of both those guys.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the backs about more their catching ability. Have they shown a promise to catch the ball, turn uphill? So when we spell EMC, we're not just running the ball with them. We can use them out of the backfield. Have they shown signs of life in that area?
Yeah, that's the thing that stood out to me during the offseason program was Jordan Mason caught everything that was thrown in his direction. He's still doing pretty good, but there was a little bit of miscommunication with Lance a couple days ago on one route. But for the most part, he's been pretty good. And Ty Davis Price, as I mentioned, that was one of them. I think he's been targeted a couple times and made them both the catches. So good stuff.
Nice.
John Lynch also told us that, he showed up one morning at like 5 a.m. or something like that, or 6 a.m. in the morning. There was nobody around, but Ty Davis Price was in the locker room. This was a couple days after Chris Forster told us that Ty Davis Price is an incredibly hard worker. And they may have, it may be the same anecdote, that they just shared with one another. But, the one thing, just from the scouting background, I'll tell you always give the LSU players a little bit of, extra credence just because it's a great program, and they get big time athletes. And if you watch this kid when he was at LSU rumble for 285 yards or whatever it was against Florida, that Ty Davis Price, he runs over his pads. He's got nice body lean. He's hard to bring down. He runs through contact. I think he averaged almost 3 yards after contact his final year in Baton Rouge. I like TDP. I was a big fan of that pick. It didn't happen for him last year. A lot of times people see that first year and we go, you know what, this guy's a bust. People were saying that about Aaron Banks coming into year 2 as well. And now here we are. Aaron Banks looks like a fixture and maybe a potential 10-year starter at left guard. So just keep your eye on TDP this preseason.
Larry, I want to circle back on Jack Coletta because I read something somewhere on him where they were the person who wrote the article said the team is so high on him that they don't want to put him on the practice squad because they're afraid someone's going to pluck him. And they really, really like him that much, that he's so smart and he seems to really play that well that they're afraid to put him on the practice squads for other teams to come and, pull him, and that he probably will make the 53-man in some capacity. So it's hard to imagine having 2 fullbacks, but, I don't know if you guys, you spoke highly of him already, but that stood out to me. Like, really, we would make a roster spot for this guy.
He's got an interesting nickname. They call him Jack Hammer.
Yeah.
the jackhammer, absolutely. He's my favorite player for some reason.
And I had him on my channel, and we did an hour during the OTAs, like right before the OTAs, and this guy gives back to wounded warriors, and he's just, the guy's just an awesome guy. He played fullback, linebacker, quarterback at Oregon State. I think it was Dallas wanted him, Denver wanted him. 5 or 6 teams in the league that still use a fullback really wanted him. The Niners paid him And they, this is where I think the 49ers are also doing a really good job, and nobody really knows about, is they identified they liked him early, and they communicated that to him, and then they kept up with him throughout the draft. And when the draft ended and everybody goes into the free-for-all trying to sign undrafted college free agents, he just told his agent, hey, I want to sign with the Niners. They're showing the most interest. But, yeah, I read that same article that you read that, these teams that wanted him will pluck him at the cut down. Right. So, either he'll be a Niner or he's another guy who they may be able to actually trade. They may be able to get a 2024 draft choice out of just having the foresight to sign Jack Hammer or to sign Jack Coletta, the man they know is Jack Hammer. Which is amazing. I mean, think about that. If they could turn an undrafted college free agent into a 2024 draft choice without him playing a single snap in the regular season, that's doing your job personnel wise. So I know they like him.
The scouting team needs a bonus, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I asked him, I said, Jack, what's your, what do you think the strength of your game is? And he's a mechanical engineering major. He's incredibly bright. And he's like, you know what? I don't want to, sound arrogant or anything, but I can memorize everything. There's a dizzying array of formations and things to know in this offense. And he's like, I've always been good at memorization. And the guy's just really, really smart guy. So, and other teams have noticed as well. And it'll be, to me, he's going to be a very interesting guy to watch how they utilize him in preseason. And I'll make a prediction. If they use him a lot, they'll probably trade him. If they don't use him at all, they'll try to sneak him through waivers and get him to the practice squad. They may try to stash him. So that's something to look for.
Or the other thing to think about here too, like Larry said, trying to get him over to the practice squad. Depending on how this all shakes out, maybe there's a player in another position that they feel they can slide through, and so they do carry Coletta on the initial 53, kind of get him through that initial wave of cut downs and all those things that happen, right? And you see the players do this quite often with players they like. They'll keep them on the 53, and then once that weekend is over with and they start to get ready, then they slide him back over, move him to the 53, pull somebody else up. It's never that original 53 is almost never what the 53 is, even week one. So that's another route that they could take. Beyond that, I think it'd be hard for them to keep six running backs with on top of what they have to do everywhere else. So maybe that's a position where they only keep 5 wide receivers or 3 tight ends or something like that, because they know that they're going to be able to bring back, say, Ronnie Bell, for example, right, or whatever. Yeah. So it'll be an interesting time when we get down to that cut down day, because I've been impressed with Coletta myself. He's made a couple of catches these last couple of days, and I've noticed him getting on the field earlier and earlier and earlier in the day over the last couple of days since the pads have come on.
We used to do that with a player. His name is escaping me. We would literally put him on the practice squad, waivers, re-sign him, drop him all the time. And I can't think of his name.
On the 49ers?
Yeah.
Dante Johnson was
Dante
forever
Johnson.
doing that.
It's before Dante Johnson. It's probably 6, 7 years.
Dante Johnson. Wow. That's a long time ago then.
Yeah.
Dante Johnson's a long time ago. Okay.
It was Harbaugh era.
I'm only 29. So. Damn it.
Is Elijah Mitchell hurt again, or is he fine?
No, he's fine. I think he's just not getting talked about because everybody's focusing on Christian McCaffrey, and he's just kind of that guy in the middle. He's like the middle child that everybody forgets about. That's kind of where he is right now, I think.
Kyle Shanahan loves Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell has, some traits that are just outstanding. He does not fumble the football. And the guy doesn't have negative yardage plays. I mean, if you block, if it's blocked for a yard, he gets 2. If it's blocked for 2, he gets 3. He finds a way to fall forward. He'd never, ever just, his tackles for loss. He's a very difficult player to tackle in the backfield. He can almost always kind of slither through and find an opening. He's a really interesting player from the standpoint of he ran 4.33 coming out of Lafayette. And if you watch him, he really doesn't play to that speed. But what he is just a phenomenal finisher. I mean, Shanahan with it, with the game on the way he used him in the playoffs is how he wants to use him. He wants to use McCaffrey in the first half and all kinds of gadget plays and get linebackers covering McCaffrey out in space. When he gets a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, McCaffrey comes out, in comes Elijah Mitchell. They run it between the tackles, and good luck stopping it. I mean, there's to me, there's a little bit. I mean, I know you're going to laugh at this one, but there's a little bit of Emmitt Smith in Mitchell, in that Emmitt was a hard guy to just knock back. He always could find the hole. He's got great pick and slide ability, great instincts. Mitchell's got incredible instincts. So as long as he stays healthy, I think he's not just a back on this team. I think he's a finisher and a primary back.
Folks used to talk about Curry with his ankles like they talk about Kinlaw. Have you seen any special attention to Kinlaw's knees after reps?
No, not wearing a sleeve. He's healthy. It's funny. This is an interesting story that, kind of bleeds, almost transcends football in some ways. Eric Armstead kind of gave us an indication is that, Kinlaw's had a lot of physical problems, but it's bled over into bothering his mental psyche, and the criticism that he's gotten has I don't want to say send him into depression, but let's just say affected the young man. And this year he's healthy. He knows this is his last best opportunity to kind of secure his NFL career. He is winning in the one-on-ones. Today, Chris Kacerek talked, at length about all the things he likes about Kinlaw. And man, if you want to make the Niners a more dangerous Super Bowl team, have Javon Kinlaw out of nowhere fulfill his potential this year. If he fulfills his potential this year, this team is going probably to the NFC Championship game for sure, with a great chance to go to the Super Bowl. He's that talented.
Yeah, I haven't seen them touch anything with his lower, legs or anything like that. He's looked good, like I said in the beginning of the show. Javon Kinlaw, he's the guy. He's like Larry said, he's playing for his NFL life right now. He's playing for his next contract somewhere else. Most likely, the Flyers won't be able to extend him after this year. Yeah. So he's playing for a contract, and the Flyers are going to get the best version of Javon Kinlaw this year, regardless of what you think of the guy. He's going to get the best of him. And think of it this way: if you've ever dealt with injuries of any kind, you don't even have to be a professional athlete. Just think about what it takes if you have an injury to make yourself feel good again. And he's been dealing with that every year since he came to the 49ers. And then on top of that, everything that you get as an athlete in terms of we all think that, I get frustrated with the amount of, notifications I get on my Twitter or whatever. I couldn't imagine what it is to be a guy like Javon Kinlaw or Trey Lance or what have you, the amount of stuff that they deal with. So to kind of put all that behind you and focus on this year, I think he's in a really good spot. And I think if I agree with Larry, if he performs at the level that he looks like he can, once we get to the regular season, the 49ers defensive line is just going to be dominant in the interior.
So switching gears to the O-line, a lot of fans are worried about that right tackle position and Colt McCoy. How's he been doing?
Colt McCoy is really good. I know there's a lot of questions. I'll jump on this one first. I know Larry's a big fan of Colt McCoy. He talked to him a lot last year, so I'll let him say a bunch. But I've liked him. I've liked what I've seen from him. His footwork looks really good, and the biggest thing for me is he looks like he's confident. The way that he's just kind of carries himself around the field, and when he came to the media room yesterday, he just seems like he's confident. I don't think they're gonna. If there's a drop off from Mike McGlinchey, it's not going to be that big of a deal. They've proven themselves. He's going to be better than what they got out of Tom Compton a couple years ago in the NFC Championship game with him. And then you've got three guys next to him that are all going into their second year that should improve. And then they got some guy over at left tackle, I don't know, Williams or something like that. So they're going to be fine, and he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to tell me you don't know anything about the Niners without telling me you don't know anything about the Niners, just start ripping Colton McCoy. because it's the easiest, it's low hanging fruit, right? I mean, it's like, okay, you're not going to rip Trent. Banks and Burford are, really, an outstanding young guard tandem, probably will be in place for the next, decade. Brendel's a Pro Bowl alternate. So if you sit there and yeah, but their offensive line sucks. It all is going to be at the lap of Colton McKivitz. And you don't know what you're talking about. It's like this guy's a better pass protector than Mike McGlinchey. He's assignment sound. He's not going to whiz down his leg because there's pressure. That's not a problem. What is a problem is the swing tackle. That is a problem. And Jalen Moore went down with an injury. I don't know, Jack. I don't know if there's any details on that, but I didn't see any. But he was getting most of the run on both sides. So to me, he's in the lead for that swing tackle spot. And then like Matt Pryor's there, but Matt Pryor to me looks about, he looked about 20 pounds overweight at minicamp. Now he looks about 15 pounds overweight. Leroy Watson is a very raw player. Alfredo Gutierrez is even more raw. Ilm Manning played left tackle at Hawaii, but he really doesn't have left tackle dimensions. So if you said to me, is there a spot the Niners are going to have to go outside the organization to fill on the cut down, I'm pretty confident they're going to have to go get a swing tackle. Cincinnati has Jonah Smith, moving from left tackle to right tackle, and Lael Collins, the former Cowboy, is their extra tackle. There's a lot of speculation he may get cut. I could see the Niners dealing with Cincinnati for Lael Collins. They also have a kid named Dante Smith out of Eastern Carolina, real good young prospect. The Raiders have a couple good young backup offensive linemen that I could see the Niners have an interest in. I really believe the Niners will trade for a third tackle, but they're really solid. I mean, Trent's Trent, right? He's maybe as good as any offensive lineman since Walter Jones or any offensive tackle. But lots of people love to rip McKivitz, and they don't know what they're talking about. The guy is, I think, going to be an upgrade on McGlinchey, because McGlinchey's problem was that he could not kick out against speed rushers, so he would just lunge. And also that led to false starts, and it led to him being off balance. And that's why at the end of the year, you guys saw those clips of McGlinchey literally parallel to the ground, because what happens is, as the right tackle, he would lunge out to his right, so much so that he would lose balance. He would get clubbed on the left shoulder and just lose his balance. So that one element, and McGlinchey's a great run blocker, but that one weakness in his game broke down every other facet of his pass protection game. I think McKivitz is going to be a huge improvement there.
I'm just going to say one more thing on McKivitz, and this is something that Trent Williams has said. Trent Williams has said that he feels like the 49ers would have been better in that 2021 NFC Championship game against the Rams if McKivitz started instead of him because of the ankle injury. So that kind of gives you an idea of how the 49ers feel about McKivitz and how guys, the main guy along that offensive line feels about him. It's, obviously you'd rather have Trent Williams, but you'd rather have a guy that like McKivitz instead of a somebody that's hurt like him. So that's what I think about the biggest praise that you give McKivitz.
All right. Any more insight into Nick Bosa and when he may possibly be signing?
Now, I have strong feelings on this, but it sounds like I've got strong feelings on almost everything.
You, Larry? No.
Yeah. Say hi to Ted for me. Shit. Ted's a good guy. We shook hands the other day at practice. No, but I really believe that Bosa and this contract in the Niners, I believe this thing's been agreed to. I really believe that the 49ers understand the dynamic of camp. They understand the dynamic of Bosa. Bosa is in great shape. He's in the best shape of almost anybody. when, a lot of times the big concern with holdouts, it's like, I don't know if we should, you got to get him in here because, he'll get out of shape and this and that. And this guy's not going to get out of shape. Every time I watch a practice with pads, and there's one thing that I feel very strongly about, the last thing I want to see is Nick Bosa get taken out at the knees by some backup Raider offensive lineman in a 110-degree day in Vegas, some guy who's trying to make a name for himself. I don't want to see Nick Bosa until the 15th of August. And if he's there on the 20th, that's even better. I would say Nick Bosa needs probably 5 or 6 padded practices, maybe one preseason game for, 4 or 5 series to get ready for the Steelers in Heinz Field in week 1. Last year you had a Menahue. Last year you had Jordan Willis. Last year you had Ebukam. Now the backups at defensive end are not near as talented. And, if you lose Bosa, you're cooked. And you were cooked last year if you lost Bosa, but this year you're really cooked. So I'm glad that Bosa's not signed. I really believe that they've already agreed to the deal. They've had forever and a day to get this thing done. I do not believe that, we're still, exchanging numbers. And, no, I don't buy that at all. They know what they're paying him. They're going to pay him $33.5 million. He's going to be the highest paid defensive player in the league. And they're just sitting him out to minimize the exposure, to not get their money man hurt. I mean, there's a couple guys on this team, Kittle, Bosa, Trent, that if you lose these guys, Vegas odds on the Niners Super Bowl, run go way, way down. And so I think they've got reason to keep him out, and I think they are.
Yeah, and we talked about that with, I think it was John Lynch the other day, and it's one of those situations, defensive ends, that's not a position that you need a whole lot of reps. You can pretty much bring him in on a short notice, and all you got to do is say, Nick, go get that guy. Right. I mean, that's what it is. If he's and we know that Nick Bosa is in good shape. I mean, we're all older, so we all remember the 94 team I mentioned earlier. Well, in 98, you remember when the 49ers were going up against the Green Bay Packers, they brought in Charles Haley off the street. Haley hadn't played all season. Yeah. And he goes into that game against the Green Bay Packers and he's chasing Brett Favre all over the field. So I'm not worried about it. I will say that the 49ers need Nick Bosa way more than Nick Bosa needs the 49ers, because he's got the money, he's got the boat in Florida, he's living a good life, he's keeping himself in shape. He doesn't need them to be able to be successful. They do need him though in order to get it done.
And the thing that sticks out to me is the rumor mill is quiet. When there's animosity and there's trouble in the contract negotiations, those things have a way of making it to the noise box. Someone's going to make a sound, someone's going to know something, and the rumor mill is going to go wild with it. You don't hear that. There's zero talk about his contract. Yeah. So that I would agree with you, Larry, that your assessment is they've already got the agreement, the numbers settled. It's just a matter of either they've agreed to a later date to have it, signed or whatever, or it's some sort of nuanced language in there that they're still chucking over. But
they asked him, not to interrupt you, when they asked him about his contract, we asked him about his contract situation in minicamp. They're like, hey, Nick, what do you think you're going to get? And people were kind of going down that road. And he's like, in typical Bosa fashion, he's like, I think I'll get what I deserve.
I remember that. Yeah.
It's like,
it's so Nick Bosa answer, right? He's like, I'm going to get what I deserve. Mm-hmm.
And if he was worried about it, you're right. So if somebody on his side was worried about it, they would leak this, what? Nick may want out. Nick may not want to be here. Right. Mm-hmm. And Lynch has already told us, in a couple different ways, hey, look, me and I think the guy's name is Aralt, the agent. He's like, we've agreed that, we're going to keep this in-house and private. Yeah, you've agreed that you're going to pay him what he freaking wants, and they've agreed that they're going to be cool with you sitting him out until the middle of August. That's what you've agreed to.
Yeah, so he gets everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Niners are going to just be nonchalant, it's all cool. Yeah,
right.
It's good. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. If there was trouble in paradise, it would be out there. The whole universe would know about it.
Yes.
Yeah, we hear
No
something.
news is good news. Yeah. And we've talked about it on this show. How we know he's not coming in 20 pounds overweight.
No.
He's going to come in just as chiseled as ever, ready to go. So,
Motor's going to be
we're
running
fine.
high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
RPMs are up there in the red zone where they belong. And yeah.
All right. So moving on to the well, before we get to that, I just want to ask you about the kickers.
Yeah, here we go. This is
What about him?
him?
I mean, Jake Moody kicked the ball out of the facility yesterday on one of his field goals. That was kind of cool to see. He finally got one over the fence. That was nice. The guy's got as strong as his legs strong as heck. It sounds like the thud of it is like a running back hitting a linebacker. So Jake Moody's going to be really good for this team. And I know there's a lot of hand wringing over that draft pick, but I think he's going to be worth it in the end.
Is it a competition though because Zane Gonzalez is there?
It's Moody's job unless Moody chokes, and then Gonzalez will get it. But, one of the things that was interesting, Moody hit a 55-yarder the other day. Gonzalez stepped up and made a 57-yarder on the next kick. That. They're going to get a pick for Gonzalez. This was another phenomenal pickup. I mean, the Niners are really covered here. If Moody falls on his face, they go to Zane Gonzalez. If they don't want to go to Zane Gonzalez, Robbie Gould standing by, near his phone, wanting to be on the team. Once they gave Hargrave all that cash, they had to get creative on the cap. And I think they would have liked to have Robbie Gould back, but then Gould was talking about being in Chicago. You're going to have to pay him $5 million. You don't have to pay the rookie kicker or anything. But if you ask me how it's going to go, Jake Moody's going to be their kicker, probably going to be their kicker for the next 15 years, to be honest. And I think Zane Gonzalez is going to fetch a 7th-round pick at the cutdown. And if somehow, some way, Moody gets squirrely and mental and can't make kicks, I think you'll see Robbie Gould and Zane Gonzalez still flip for a 7th-round pick. There's a lot of teams that don't have a kicker as good as Zane Gonzalez. So that was a terrific signing by the Niners. They got him, and they're going to be able to turn him into a pick.
Right, we have nothing guaranteed for him, right? Like, it's just we signed you, we owe you nothing. You got to prove yourself for it.
Yeah, that was a good trade for the Niners in a couple of ways. The first reason it was a good trade is because I think they knew they wanted Jake Moody. They weren't sure if they were going to be able to get him in the draft because they knew that there's other teams that wanted him. So they go out and they insulate themselves with Zane Gonzalez. And then they do it with a draft pick that they don't have to give up unless he makes the team. Now that they have Moody, he's not going to make the team. So they give that pick back to Carolina. It doesn't cost them anything to have him around and take that, buy some insurance, right? That's basically what I think they did there. I agree with Larry. They could possibly flip him at some point if somebody else wants him. But I think that whole situation was a good move. But for Niners front office, can we just give them a little bit of credit? I mean, we hammer on Kyle Shanahan and this team all the time, but the moves that they've made, there's some that haven't worked out. But more often than not, the moves that they've made have panned out.
Whoa. There it is. Rounds of applause.
So moving on to the quarterbacks.
Really?
Look at Jess just sandbagging until the end of the show.
Yep.
Your assessment on the quarterbacks until now, like mini camp, 6 days into training camp, thoughts?
Yeah. The
Go ahead, Jack.
The 49ers have thanks. Sorry. The 49ers have 3 really good quarterbacks, and they have Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen's not a bad quarterback. He's okay. but think about it this way. How many podcasts did we hear over the offseason in which we heard people saying that Trey Lance should start the first 4 weeks of the season because Brock Purdy's not going to be ready to go. There's no way that he's going to be ready to go because he's not going to be ready even until after training camp's over with and all these kind of things. And not only did he make it back earlier, he hasn't missed a practice. He's been ready to go since day one, but because of his training regimen, they held him out that first day. And so all these arguments about how well Brock Purdy is or isn't playing during training camp, to me, are some of the silliest things, just because of the fact that it's August 2nd and he has already practiced 4 times. He's practiced with 11 on 11 with guys around him. So that's number one for me, the Brock Purdy situation. He's looked, I think, over the last 2 days, he's looked really good, to be honest with you. Trey Lance, I think, as far as Lance goes, this is the best Trey Lance we've seen in San Francisco since he got here. The work that he did with Jeff Christensen paid off. His mechanics are better. I wasn't sold on him during OTAs. I thought the mechanics looked better, but I was still like, yeah, I've seen this show before, right? Well, during training camp, I've kind of changed over the last few days because it hasn't been that way. Day 1 was good. Day 2 and 3 were, but day 4, 5, and 6 were all consistent. And there's some things about, there's still going to be some mistakes here and there, but whatever. He looks really good. So that's why I say I think he's the best that we've seen of him. And then you get to Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold's the only 49ers quarterback of those 3 that hasn't thrown a pick since he got signed by the team. We had a couple interceptions from Brock Purdy. Trey Lance threw a pick during OTAs. Sam Darnold's the guy that everybody talks about turning the ball over, and he hasn't turned the ball over once. And he's made some really nice throws. And so you look at, I keep saying this over and over again, if you're a 49er fan, you need to be I think you should be really excited about the way that room has performed. The offense, I put this out in a tweet earlier today, the offense right now is moving the ball better than they were at this time a year ago. The first team offense on Monday during their situational and move the ball period did exactly that. They moved the ball. They picked up first downs every time with Brock Purdy, that first team D. They really struggled with that last year. Part of it is Nick Bosa's not around, so I get that. But they did well. The second team offense moved with Trey Lance. Sam Darnold worked back and forth between the 2s and the 1s that day. Or 2s and 3s, excuse me. It didn't matter which one he was working on. He was doing well too. Ronnie Brown, we didn't even talk about him, but the 7th-round pick out of Michigan, he hadn't touched the ball, hadn't even had a target until Monday. And Sam Darnold and him connected 3 times for first down. So, the 49ers quarterback position, I like it. I think those 3 are your best. I know Mike Silver put out, the possibility of the 49ers cutting Trey Lance, releasing him if they like, Brandon Allen. I disagree with Mike because from a football perspective, that makes about as much sense as, I can't say it on the air. It just makes zero sense.
I got to take this opportunity to say shame on the Niner fans. Shame on the Niner fans. This has been a pathetically bad offseason of dialogue. It's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. Trey Lance is 23 years old. He's made 4 starts, and you got people shouting at the top of their lungs, "He's a bust! He's a bust!" That's shameful. Absolutely shameful. It's equally shameful to decide that Trey Lance is the guy and you're going to take it out on Brock Purdy. What the hell did Brock Purdy do? He just won every game that he started and finished and was historically great. What you saw last year doesn't freaking happen. Guys don't, as rookie 7th-round picks, come off the bench. And I saw it in preseason. Heck, I've been touting this guy, so I'm kind of like the Brock Purdy stan, right? I've been called that a million times. But, the thing, it's shameful. I mean, what did Brock Purdy do to have all these people, say he's dink and dunk and he's this and he's that? It's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And then the testament to these guys that they actually, in the midst of all this massive avalanche of negativity, garbage, they still have this great relationship. Why? Because Brock's classy and Trey's classy and Sam Darnold is classy. And these guys absolutely have a phenomenal rapport. It's hilarious. You would think that it's the most toxic situation known to man by the dialogue surrounding it, but these guys get along great. And Darnold told us in the media room the other day, he's like, "Hey, man, we're all young guys." Or no, Trey told me. I said, "What's the vibe like in your room?" He's like, "Hey, we're all young guys, and we're all." Sam Darnold's 25. People have decided he sucks. Steve Young wasn't good until he was 31. Warren Moon wasn't good till he was like 33. I looked up every Hall of Fame quarterback who's ever played in the NFL. 90% of them were not good in their first couple of years. So it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful the way people have gotten so, my guy's player X, and I'm just going to crap on the other guy. I want Trey Lance to start, so I'm just going to make up all kinds of crap about Brock Purdy and insult him. And then because I know that he might actually start, I'm going to insult him every day on Twitter and on YouTube. But then I'm such a chicken shit that I'm actually going to say, well, actually, I like him. I freaking like him. I actually like him. Woo! I've only been calling him a weak-armed nothing for 6 months every day on Twitter, but I like him. I mean, it's
let him do one thing great, then he's like, that's my quarterback, right?
I'm right about everything. I'm always right. Yeah, you're always right because you give every single outcome and then you sit there and cherry pick. Let me tell you. Ultimately, all three of these guys. I mean, Allen's a different case. Okay, Allen's a different case. Allen is really good in the short game. Really good. He can operate Kyle's offense. He can operate in the intermediate. When it gets 18 to 25 yards down the field or anything more, he really kind of sprays it. You know what I mean? His accuracy is not on the level of the other guys. So to me, he's a third string quarterback. But as far as Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, I think all three of these guys have a path to win the starting job. It's a competition. It's August 2nd. A lot has to come down between now and Heinz Field. Brock Purdy has to show that he has not lost arm strength or ball speed, that he can throw the deep out, that he can put it in the window, in a tight NFL window on a regular basis, and that he hasn't lost arm strength due to the surgery. That's what he's got to prove. If he can prove that and consistently show arm strength, we know he can process. We know he's accurate. He's kind of almost a proven entity. We got a pretty good idea of what Brock is. But it's also year 2. Defenses will adjust. But that's his challenge. Trey Lance's challenge, he's the best thrower of the football they got in some ways. But he's got to show that he can throw with touch and with timing. And he can do it consistently. And if he can do that, then he can be the number one quarterback. And then Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold turned the ball over a ton at SC. He turned the ball over a ton with the Jets. He's got 90 turnovers in 56 NFL career games. That's way too many turnovers. He's got to show that he can avoid turnovers. If Darnold doesn't turn it over, he's got a shot to start. If Lance can throw a touch and timing, he's got a shot to start. And if Purdy can show that he hasn't lost arm strength and ball speed, he's going to start, and we'll take it from there. But I know I went on my soapbox. I'm sorry, but I'm so disgusted by the tenor of the conversation, the tone, and just the degrees people will go to back their guy. And if you knew these guys are sitting there, if you knew how much these guys are laughing at you, they don't love that. You're not backing your guy. They're laughing at you. So I don't know. That's just maybe the nature of the public and way people are, but I think it's shameful. There's been way too much negativity. All these guys play for, let me think about it, the Niners. And if you're a Niner fan, if you're a Niner supporter, wouldn't you be? People are like, Krueg, you're a Purdy guy. I'm not a Purdy guy. I'm the guy who's banging the table going into the draft saying, draft Trey Lance, draft Trey Lance. If Trey Lance becomes the starter, in some ways, I feel vindicated that I told them on draft day to pick the right guy. This idea that he's a bust is pathetic. This idea that Brock Purdy's weak is pathetic. This idea that Sam Darnold cannot change his career arc from where it's been with the Jets and Panthers is also pathetic.
I agree so much with Larry. I've been writing the number of tweets over the last 2 days that I've started and then deleted because I didn't want to put them out there because of the way that things have been talked about is crazy. But I'm just going to say this. And there's a lot of 49ers content creators who are attending practice in Santa Clara. And there's one, maybe two, who I really respect everything that I have seen them put out because I think it is on the money It's not without bias, or if that's what the word or whatever, but it's really sound football knowledge. And that is Brad Graham. If you follow Brad on Twitter, when you look at the tweets that he has put out, he has been nails on everything that he's put out. I just there is an error to the way that everybody else that I know of that's in attendance has been responding or putting out their information on this. We named one of them earlier in the show. You know, when you talk about the lack of arm strength from Brock Purdy, when you talk about the lack of height with Brock Purdy, when you talk about the fact he can't get faster, no shit, that's the size. But don't take it from Jack Hammer. Don't take it from Larry Kruger. Don't take it from, if you don't want to listen to Alex Smith because he was never a great player, don't listen to him. Go ahead and listen to a guy that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Steve Young, because he said that, right? Take it from another guy who was in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in terms of the dink and dunk stuff, Kurt Warner. Take it from another guy that was a 49ers quarterback that was a multi-time Pro Bowler and who said that a lot of these people that are ripping on Brock Purdy have all talked about how much they liked Jeff Garcia. Well, guess what Jeff Garcia said? Jeff Garcia said, I see a lot of me in him. And that was on an interview that he did up in Sacramento. So, you know, it's you do not, and I know that people might, you know, that are watching the show might feel like I'm a Brock Purdy guy. I know that people say that. They feel like I'm a Jimmy Garoppolo guy, like I'm a Trey Lance hater. I don't really, whatever. But what I'm going to say is you don't have to tear a quarterback down on this team to tell you how good another player played. Like, for example, on Tuesday, Brock Purdy was 11 of 15. Yeah, he had an interception. He had a bad throw, you know, out to a tight end on the play before. There were some things that he did poorly. But that's his first practice in 11 on 11s after not being able to throw the ball for, 3.5 months because of the injury. The guy had his arm redone, right? And he's out there way ahead of schedule, and he played well. And to have people come after that practice and say he did not play good, that yesterday he was the worst quarterback on the field. What the fuck? Sorry. What are we watching? Like, seriously, I apologize, but what are we watching? And that's what I don't know who put that out today. I think it was on the Rich Eisen show or it was on one of the national shows. Oh, it was Adam Schefter. What are you watching to come away with Brock Purdy was the worst quarterback on the field? Come on, man. Let's just call it like it is. And, you know, and I'm sorry for swearing. I'm frustrated with it. I'm extremely frustrated with it because I don't know, you know, Larry's doing the best that he can with how he's covering it. I'm doing the best that I can. And when I do my coverage, the way that I do it, I'm doing both YouTube and writing, right? Mm-hmm. If you guys take the time that are yelling at me on Twitter, if you're you know, you guys probably don't have any of them in here, so I'm probably just speaking to the choir. But if you take the time to actually read what I'm putting out there, I'm not just telling you a couple of plays. I try to break it down as much as I can, as many things, even if it's a bad day. For like on the days that Trey Lance and Sam Darnold were 2-5, like on day 2 of practice, whatever it was, I found something positive to say about Trey Lance's day, something that he did good. So come on, just let's call it like it is, and let's not try to play sides. Let's not try to play to our base in terms of who's going to follow. And we do all this. We all do YouTube. I'm going to tell you right now, if you want views, Trey Lance equals views. Views equal money. It starts and stops right there.
There you go.
And I like Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance. I get called out, right? But here's the thing. If you go on my Twitter, the first day of OTAs that we could go, which was day 2, I put out a tweet that said, there's some days with work that are good, and then there's, you know, you just don't want to go to work, and there's other days when you're really excited to go to work. I didn't explain what that was about, but that was the first day of OTAs, and I was excited because I was going to get to go watch Trey Lance throw the football, and we'd heard all about him, and I was going to get to go watch him play. Just like in Chicago week 1, I was excited to go watch him play. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't come across in my analysis of the game, but I don't try to sugarcoat my analysis. I think that's why people feel that way about me when it comes to these quarterbacks, is because if a guy doesn't play well, I'm not gonna blow smoke up your rear end. I'm gonna tell you he didn't play good, or I don't think he did this job here, or what have you. And I think Larry does the same thing on his channel. Larry knows more football than me because he's been a professional scout. So he knows more football than me. I've only done it at the lower levels in terms of being around the game, in terms of coaching and stuff like that. But it's come on, man. Let's be real and let's make sure that we do all that stuff. And I need to shut up.
Yeah, well said though. And I said this earlier. A lot of people, they read stuff and they're just quick to react to it and want to say something instead of taking a moment to digest it, absorb it, maybe read a little more. I know for a fact a lot of people don't read your articles, Jack, because if they did, they understand. But it's too reactionary. Like, take a second, understand what he's saying. Perhaps ask him what what exactly is he saying if you don't know, and then you can have a better conversation. It's just too much of this infighting that we've talked about, Larry. Like that, it's too much of this infighting that makes no sense.
Yeah, and I think some of it is, and we want to get you guys the information as soon as we can, right? And so that initial analysis or initial reporting. Here's something that I know about myself is part of the reason I don't do it right then is because I know that I'm not going to get it right as well as I am later on. So like Trey Lance's game against Arizona last year, I walked away from the game and it was over with, and I didn't feel like he played well. And then when I watched the film, when the film came out on Tuesday and I went through it and I saw the throwaways and I saw some other things, I still didn't feel like he played, as good as he could have, but I felt like he played better than my initial reaction to it. Does that make sense? And so at least like for me, taking some time after practice, because here's the thing, I take notes of every play. Larry sees it. I'm out there scribbling stuff after every play. I can go back and I can look at my notes from practice, and I just looking off the notes, I can pretty much visualize the play and what happened in that, and then sit there and have a conversation with you if you're watching, where we can have a conversation like this and kind of tell you what I saw. And it's tough too when you're writing, because the 49ers, they put out a thing. They tell you, they don't want you to talk about certain stuff. And so I try to give you as much detail as I can without fully showing you the play during training camp, if that makes sense, because they don't want that. And people talk a lot about access journalism and how but that's about as far as I go, because I don't want to get in trouble with that. But beyond that, I'll tell you whatever you want to hear. All right, Larry, you got to say something. I've been talking too much.
Well,
quick question. Wait, quick question, real quick.
Yeah. We
haven't seen any footage of the kickers thus far. Are you guys not allowed to record the kickers?
No, we're not. That's the thing is, you have a lot of people questioning stuff in terms of like the videos. The 49ers limit the time that cameras are allowed. So it's usually the first 4 or 5 periods. And so it's basically the stretching and the quarterbacks. That's why when you look at like what we show you from the quarterbacks, it's the quarterbacks warming up with the coaches. Sometimes we can video where they're throwing to the wide receivers just against air. Usually after that session where they're throwing against air, that's when it's cut it off and you can't videotape anymore. So that's why you haven't seen some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think Jack said everything I wanted to say. I mean, it's just people, we're going to look back at this, and I really believe, and I'm in the minority here on this one, but I really believe that the 49ers have, and I don't know about Sam Darnold because I haven't seen enough, and I'm a little bit skeptical, but I really believe the 49ers have 2 franchise quarterbacks. I think Brock Purdy's a franchise quarterback. I think Trey Lance is a franchise quarterback. I think Brock Purdy's ready to play week 1 against the Steelers at Heinz Field. I don't think Trey Lance is ready to be the franchise quarterback necessarily week 1. But I said the same thing about Alex Smith on draft day. I really wanted the Niners in that draft to take Aaron Rodgers. And I remember doing an interview with Urban Meyer, and I asked Urban Meyer, I said, hey, is Smith going to be really good right away? And he's like, no. I'm like, what? I thought, oh, my God, what do you mean? And he's like, no, he's going to be totally non-functional until he knows the offense. And the more scouts that I talked to about Smith, because I watched tons of Rodgers, but I hadn't watched Smith, they were like, you know what? This is what Smith is. And they told me all these different attributes of Smith. And I kind of decided after watching myself, talking to all these people, that I really felt like Alex Smith was going to get there, but that it was going to take him. He'd be an old guy with a beard, and by the time he figured it out, but I just figured he's too good of a prospect, too smart, too athletic, too wed to being good at football to fail. And I feel the exact same way about Trey Lance. Alex Smith did not turn it around until Jim Harbaugh entered the mix. You know what year Alex Smith was in the NFL when Jim Harbaugh joined the Niners? He was in his 8th year.
Right.
8th. So it takes time sometimes. For every Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, Dan Marino, Andrew Luck, Patrick Mahomes, there are 10 other guys who it takes time. And we're an instant gratification culture.
Yep.
We're a highlight reel culture. We want it now. There are people that think that I'm, pro Brock Purdy, because I very much am. But then they will proliferate my chat on YouTube with this Trey Lance hatred, and they don't realize that I'm laughing at them. It's like they think they're saying something that I'm going to agree with, and I'm laughing at them because I know that Trey Lance is going to get there. Why? Because he's smart as hell. He's a great athlete. His, football's the family business, and it means a lot to him. The most important part of this preseason or this camp so far, guys, that we haven't talked about was, I think it was Sunday. Sunday, Trey missed an obvious pass, just an absolute easy pass to Deebo. Deebo was lined up on the right side. Trey ran right. No defenders between him and Deebo, and airmailed him. Deebo reached up, and the ball went over his arms. And, everybody wrote in their notebook and this and that. Practice ends. Everybody goes inside. I decided I was going to hang out for a couple minutes. Sure enough, Trey Lance got a receiver, got that exact same situation, put the receiver on the right side, had himself running right, and threw that pattern 5 times, 6 times. That told me tons. It's kind of like the kid in school that makes a mistake on the geometry test, and some kids just screw it, throw it in their bag and go to recess. The kid who wants to be a good student says, I got to conquer that. I've got to clear that hurdle. I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to go through that math problem until I get it down. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get better. And that's what Trey Lance did. So Trey Lance is checking boxes, and he checked that box. The next day he came out, he's throwing the ball better on the short stuff. He's got to show touch and timing, and he was better. He's still going to have some throws that are the short stuff where he's going to miss it because when you haven't had reps, it's hard to throw with touch and timing. He can rip it with the best of them, but he's going to struggle on some of those short throws. He's going to be good because of that, what he did after practice, but he ain't good yet. That's why Purdy should start right away. But if you're in this Trey sucks and he's always going to suck, you're going to look really, really bad, and you're going to eat those words. So all I would say to all these people, pump the brakes on your negativity. Understand that Brock's their best quarterback today and probably week 1 at Heinz Field. But Trey Lance is coming. And my hope is that the 49ers see what I see and that they show the patience and invest the dollars on the cap to pay his salary as he develops, despite the fact that it hasn't happened on the right timeline and he's now getting expensive. I hope they stay with him. I hope they don't trade him. Because I think he's going to play well in the preseason. You know what that means? Those 5th-round picks they got offered at the draft, they're probably going to be 3rd-round picks. And my fear is that the Niners are going to take one of those 3rd-round picks and get down the road and recommit to Brock. And it will quiet the noise, but they're going to look bad on the back end. So that's my fear. I really believe Trey's coming. I would say he needs, it's too bad there's no minor league system. If this were baseball, you'd send him to AAA. He'd play for 2 months. Or if this was the NBA, you put him in the G League for a month, And man, you'd have something. But it's the NFL. There is no minor league system. So they're just going to have to bite the bullet and stay the course. And I hope they do. I really hope they do. And I think judging from what I've heard from Lynch, I think they're starting to see what I see, which is, I'm not saying that I know more than the Niners. I'm just saying I think we're in lockstep.
Put that on Twitter.
No. I'm getting
right there.
I'm getting confident that they're now seeing that he's coming. It's going to happen. It's not going to happen by week 1, but if we're all patient enough, the 49ers are going to look up and they're going to have 2 franchise quarterbacks, and that's going to be a really good day.
Wait, hold on now. So what kind of draft could we get for Brock Purdy then?
I don't think they're going to move Brock
every game he plays.
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy. I bet you right now somebody would give you a late first round pick for Brock Purdy if you wanted to move him. But I don't think they want to move him.
Cooking from a 7th to a 1st. That's good. That's good football business.
Yeah,
I want to jump in really quick, and I want to kind of piggyback off of Larry's point regarding Lance and working after, because that's something that I saw and that we saw from Brock Purdy on day 2. That day when he took those deep shots that he missed, and he came into the media room after, and he's talked about how he needs to work on that timing with the receivers, and he stayed on the field that day, throwing the gold ball. All the 49ers quarterbacks stay after practice, almost on a regular basis from what I've seen. A couple of days ago, I got a little video of Darnold and Purdy, but that's here. And I'm not saying that to knock Lance or anything like that. That just shows the professionalism that goes into that position. And when it comes to Trey Lance, if Larry mentioned like the struggles on the short throws that he had last year, for me, the biggest thing that I've seen that from Trey Lance last year to this year, other than the touch on his ball, is he really struggled last year in camp throwing the deep out. They could not connect on that 10 to 15 yard out route. It was bad. I mean, they weren't even close. It was the guys were running the outs and the ball sailing out of bounds and stuff. He's hit that route 3 times this week, twice on Monday's practice. One of them was just a really nice throw to Chris Conley on the sideline. Another one to Tate Martin over there. Yesterday, everybody has seen the highlight film shot from practice to Brandon Ayuk. Not necessarily an out, but it's over in that, off to the side kind of a throw. That's where he's really taking his game to another level, and he's definitely coming. That's not. Brock Purdy's a starting quarterback if he's healthy and playing at the level we expect him to. But this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold. That's a really nice 1, 2, and 3 punch on this team if they have to get that far.
Yeah, I gotta thank you guys for saying those words. We have talked about it here as well. We have 2 young guys that are developing that we can win with, and we have a good situation on our hands. And the best thing is they're still developing. They're still trending upward. So we're in a good place.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
And also, here's the other thing. You want the quarterback to be a leader. And you can't be a leader if nobody's going to follow you. And if you don't believe me, go ask Zach Wilson how that's going for him with the New York Jets. You got guys wearing the backup quarterback's T-shirt. He's lost that locker room. Trey Lance isn't there yet, but the guy, I think it was Juice that said it to somebody. I think with Haberman and Middlecoff, he said he's beloved. He's beloved by the players. Why? Because he's real. And he works, and same with Brock. So they've got 2 young, great quarterback prospects. They also have 2 young leaders, and it's hard. It's hard to find a quarterback prospect. It's even harder to find a leader, and they've got 2 of them. So they're in a good spot. They're absolutely in a good spot. And you think about how last season ended, where they ran out of quarterbacks, and you see the way I saw a stat of, about a month ago. I shared it with Jack, I think a couple of weeks ago, which is, outside of 2019, the Niners have gone 6 straight years where they've needed 3 quarterbacks to get through the regular season. Yeah. So that's just the way the NFL is. And and when you're standing on the sideline and you see the hitting and the violence and how physical this game really is, having more quarterbacks that you believe in is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Jack, how's your throwing arm, by the way?
It's good.
Just
It's
in
good.
case.
If you need somebody to come in and throw some checkdowns, I'm your man. I mean, I still got it. You know, I'm out there working. My son's going to be a freshman in high
That's
school,
great.
and he wants to play quarterback. And so, I don't know how many footballs I've thrown the ball more in like about a month ago when we started throwing. I came home one night, and the next day I was like, man, my shoulder's really sore. Why the back of my shoulder hurts so much? But that's because I threw the ball for an hour. That's why, because I'm working with him, but then I'm helping him and trying to show him how to, kind of some of the things. And yeah, I still got it, man. I might be a little older, but if you need me if you need a guy to come out, the 49ers going to have 2 jackhammers on the team.
Exactly. And you're the original.
Do you
So,
ever
hey.
have too many jackhammers on a team? I mean, come on.
Oh my God. We're about to be censored.
It's a good
Yeah,
problem
big
to
time.
have, right? Come on.
That's right.
Hey, guys, your season predictions before we let you go.
As far as like win total, that kind of thing,
Yes.
or Super Bowl. You talking about who's going to go to the Super Bowl? Or I mean, I
Win
just told
total,
Grant.
Super Bowl. Go ahead.
I like Niners Chargers. I really do. I think I'm a believer in what the Niners have going right now. I really think I think this is their year, and I really like what I see from the Chargers. I think the Niners are a 12-win type team, but I really like the last time the Niners went to the Super Bowl, they beat the Chargers. It was 28 years ago. I think we're going to see Niners Chargers. Part 2. I really like what I'm seeing out of the Chargers. Telesco, I think, is one of the best young GMs in the game, and Kansas City can't go to the Super Bowl every year, so I'll go Niners Chargers, and I think 12 wins for the Niners.
Yeah, I think I had the 49ers originally at 12-5, so I'll stick at 12-5 during the regular season. I'll just keep it there. But I think the 49ers are a Super Bowl team. I would say that if I had to bet, I would bet on them at least making the NFC Championship game again. I think they get over the hump this year. I would like to see Niners Bills in the Super Bowl.
Awesome. Larry, Jack, you guys are amazing. You're 2 of my favorites for sure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yes,
And,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, enjoy the season and go Niners.
Got the flag. I've got the East Coast red and gold flag behind me. I got to get some wall space for it. But thank you very much for sending that out to me. Hopefully the Krueg Show shirt made it your way. And
Yes, it did.
Onward and upward. What I like about your guys' channel is I like everything on YouTube is about me, and you guys show is about we, and I like that. I really like that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having us, and really appreciate it. The train is about to come, so the 49ers Express passes by about 5 times a show, it seems like, so it's on its way.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks for inviting us.
No problem. Anytime.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. That was good stuff.
Good stuff.
Whew. We got a lot there.
Good stuff. Yeah,
That's
we
a
got
good
a lot
rundown.
there. Yeah. So the clips tomorrow, I'll be
Chopping them up.
out there. Yep, for sure. Yeah, they're definitely 2 of my favorites. I'm glad we had them both on. Because they work off of one another, and it was really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys don't have anything else, do you guys have anything else you want to chat about?
No, I think I'm good for now. I mean,
All right.
it's early.
Covered
And
a lot.
it's early.
I figured I would ask, but let's go to that hurry up offense and the 2-minute warning.
Yeah. Boom.
Go ahead, Becca.
Well, first, thanks to Larry and Jack for coming on the show, and everyone keep Matt and his son in their prayers. Got the new kidney, and he's not on the show tonight because they're busy taking care of all those things and getting him out of the hospital. So prayers up for him, and you know, if you can, go support and do what you can for Maddie and his son. And of course, as always, go Niners. Looking forward to more camp, more of the season. So let's go.
Big shout out to Matt and Jameson. You know, everybody sending good vibes their way, especially the young Jameson. That's a young man with his whole life is ahead of him. So we want nothing but good things for him. And everybody, next week, we get some football, some actual football. We get to hit another team. So keep your head on straight. Don't argue too much with each other. And let's take it out on the other guys next week.
Yeah. Maddie, Jameson, we're thinking of you guys. You know, positive vibes, prayers for sure. 200 subscribers for us. Pretty cool. Thanks so much to everybody in the chat tonight and always. You know, you guys rock. And thank you to Larry and to Jack. Like I said, two of my favorites. I'm so glad we had them on tonight. It was really awesome. And I hope you guys really, really listened to what they had to say because they made a lot of sense. But you know what? Enjoy this. Like Ty said, next week, we go against the team next week. So we got to, you know, take it out on them. But anyway, go Niners. Don't forget to like and subscribe and enjoy.
That's right. I can't find the outro. Damn it. Wait, okay. Have a good week, everybody. Peace out.
See you next week.
And of course, for the upstart 49ers, they're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone.